So this will be part 2 of my Schizoid-Schizotypal videos. This one is loving the Schizoid-Schizotypal personality disorder. Naturally, as I said in the first one, I've never really been one to like talking about my feelings or opening up to people. Not that I necessarily haven't wanted to, but I just found the outside world was never necessarily prepared for it, in the sense that it would just be so alien to some of the people. Like, I always had very big, majestic, beautiful kind of thoughts in my head. That's not to say that other people don't, obviously. They were just so like grandiose, and I suppose that also became one of the reasons where people would in fact become so either infatuated with me or wanting to become friends with me, was because my thought pattern, my thoughts, the way that I viewed things just was so different from the way anybody else did. A beautiful windy day today. I suppose for most of the people it was something parallel to refreshing that somebody like me would come along, just because it was different, I suppose, and you wouldn't, obviously you'd never necessarily get to anybody who knows me, knows if anybody ever says, oh well, what would Nathan think about this, what would you say about this? If somebody truly knows me and probably could talk about something on my behalf, the first thing they would say is, well, I know Nathan well enough that no matter what I think he'd say, it would be something completely different that he'd come out with. And they would also know that I just hate people talking on my behalf anyway. As far as through the schizotypal part, I did manage to find a way to bring out all of those thoughts. I don't know what the word majestic is in my head over and over again. I did find a way to bring out those thoughts and present it ingrained into a personality that I could then put forward to the world, that people would know me as, which would still very much be me, but it would be my version of me, my selected version of me, I guess. I always kind of wanted that one special person that was in my life that like I actually could fall in love with, would fall in love with, to be the one who actually got access to the core, to the inner part of me, the inside. It's always kind of like a battle of the duality, and in the sense that because the majority of the time it would be, if we want to put it as the friendship side of things, or just dealing with your regular human being, that would be the schizotypal side, and then the romantic part, the inner part of me, that would be the schizoid part. In between those two, the schizotypal very much had to expand and swell and almost take over the other part, because that was the one that was demanded so much by the outside world. Like, I would have to be around people, particularly if you're going to school, and school is just nothing more than a massive social experiment to me, in just like how to deal with people. Like, I don't remember learning pretty much anything at all in school, but I always try and keep that safer part of me, that inside part of me, for that one person that I could then open up to. Not intentionally, like I wasn't trying to be reserved in that regard. It was just simply the way it was, and I suppose I just knew that there was something there that somebody would be able to unlock, and that I would be able to take them in, as opposed to just watching out a metaphorical window and seeing another version of me effectively living my life with them. And having to live, I put live schizotypal for the world, but having to effectively live like that, it definitely influenced my relationships, because chances are somebody, when they would first meet you, is meeting you for the schizotypal side of you. And then it kind of becomes difficult, because should you progress into a relationship with that person, or you develop feelings for that person, there's then that, again, that battle that's going on inside of you, in like both mentally and emotionally, of wanting to open up, even wanting to be like weak with that person and not have to hold up that personality that everybody else might be relying on as their friend or as somebody who helps them. You know, you wanted somebody to be able to be weak with. It isn't weakness, but it's just, I suppose it's somebody just to be comfortable with, to be content with. Again, somebody to share the feelings that you have effectively kept, whether you chose to or not, inside for so long. It's not a scary thought, but it's an odd feeling to think that somebody could, in a sense, invade that part of you. And it would always be by the time that I would kind of come around to that part, the romantic part that wasn't necessarily romantic. You wouldn't want to switch personalities, as it were, to the point where the person who may have fallen in love with you for what they know of you from your schizotypal side would then start to see what could be to them a completely different person, because you're then opening up about things, or talking about things, or acting in ways that you've just never done before. And that could be a bit jarring for somebody to try and understand, particularly if you then can't express what's happening to you in those moments where, not that you're conflicted, but there is again a duality, a battle going on inside you. And it can, as anybody who's been in war will tell you, I'm sure, wars can get messy. After this video, it's probably just going to be me smoking this cigarette. So yeah, I understand that can and it has caused some issues in the past. I have been really good at managing it in certain cases of my life where the two just sync perfectly, whether that's because it's the right person or the perfect situation. But then of course they can always, I suppose, decide not to be friends again, as in the schizotypal and schizoid personalities, to the point where it's with what starts going on inside you mentally, it can then have an effect on what's going on outside of you, including the people that may be in love with you, or it could be your friends, anything like that. Particularly in this video, I am going to do the relationship side of things. The friendship side would just make this video a bit too long as well, so chances are I might stick that into a third video. In my mind, I've always said that your body is like a canvas, and the reason I've got a tattoo of a guy's name here on my chest was because I wanted, as he had marked my life in such a great way, I wanted my body to reflect that. Almost like he affected the schizoid side, he managed to get in there, so I wanted the schizotypal side to bear markings of that, to prove that this was something that happened in my life. This was somebody who had been in my life, and like I was just so thankful for them for being that. The first person that I ever actually fell in love with, because I have to say, I used to get, as everybody gets bullied in school to some extent, I used to get bullied in school, and one of the things that people used to call me like toward the end of school, nobody ever laid a finger on me because I used to do gymnastics, and there was like an odd respect for the fact that like I'd won best in the Northwest at gymnastics. So it's like any of like the, if you want to consider it, jocks, like they might take the piss at me a little bit, but they'd always pick me first for their teams and things, and like they would occasionally like have conversations. It was just, it was weird. It was weird. One of the things that people used to call me was just saying, oh, you're gay. I was very effeminate because of the schizotypal thing. Kind of, you would emulate or you would take on parts of people's personalities or the people around you. And when I was very young, because I was just friends with mostly all girls. Just because I've always found it easy to get along with women, to be honest with you. I didn't really have the wherewithal to impose a personality of my own onto the world. So we're talking like in primary school here. So instead I would kind of emulate the personalities of the people that were around me, because they were girls. I was very, very much effeminate. I mean, like, I used to do like the purposeful kind of like high-pitched voice thing as well, and it was just, again, that's a whole other video for a whole other time. I seem a bit jolly in this video, by the way. I've been given like some really strong painkillers from my doctor, which I've had for like a few months now, just to deal with the sleeping on tree roots thing. And I just felt like absolute crap this morning, so I've taken a couple of them. They're like 30 milligram codeine. And I've taken 2 of them as I'm supposed to do, so I've got 60 milligrams of codeine right now. And as I say, and so they would call me gay, and I genuinely didn't even know what that word meant. All I could do is associate it. In high school, they would call me gay, and I would just associate it with, I suppose I was beginning to understand there was a difference in myself. Not being gay, I mean having a schizotypal side to me. I was very much not there in the moments when I was around other people, and I was beginning to realise that it was a much deeper issue, if you want to call it that, than me just being like a bit weird or a bit different than the other kids. And so I had no idea what gay was, and all I could do was really associate it with the things that I assumed people were talking about, and I could gather that they were talking about, and that would be, the effeminate kind of thing, blah blah blah, which kind of fucked me up for a bit as well, because it really made me loathful of anybody else who I perceived to have those qualities. But again, during my childhood, I was just kind of lashing out at the world for a fair bit of it, just because the world was always lashing out at me, even if it was in small, unintentional ways, insignificant ways. It just, being somebody who wants to be alone and values that so much and cherishes that so much, having people like invade your personal space or like trying to get in your head or whatever it is that we're doing, like it's perceivable as more of an assault than it could be said for other people. So it was very much made me volatile toward the world. And so the first person I actually fell in love with was this guy called James, who I do have a tattoo of. I want to get off the tattoos for the other guys as well, and I've had them pictured as what I want for so long. It's always been a money issue. But when I have a roof over my head again, and if I don't need money for food as much as I do now, I'll probably start work on them again. Just because this whole homeless situation's been something of a revitalization of my inner self. But again, another video for another time. So my last day of high school, I met this guy James, and James is the best of us. Like, I've never met another human being better than him, and in the flesh at least. And I don't say that just because it's like, oh, it's your first love, of course you idolize him, everything like that. Like, when I come to the end of his part, I'll tell you like what he's currently up to in his life, or at least the last time I was able to check in with him, and like you'll understand why this guy but why this guy changed my world, and why, I mean, anybody would fall in love with him. Like, he's just so amazing isn't even the correct word. Like, that's such a human way of putting it. But yes, I met James, and we added each other on MySpace, if you guys remember MySpace, pre-Facebook for the really young crowd. And he, at first, when I realized how I felt about him as well, and I finally understood that, I was like, wow, I really love this guy. And then I found out, oh, that's what being gay is. It means that you'll fall in love with people of the same gender. And at that point, I was like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm gay. Fuck yeah, I am gay. I'm really gay for this guy. Yeah, he just completely changed. Like, he was just so nice, always had time for people, and it was, I couldn't understand how somebody could do it. I mean, I can understand it, but it was just, he was just so different from everybody else that I'd ever met. and particularly treated me so differently from the way anybody else had ever met. That nobody treated me differently, obviously, but you know what I mean. He just invoked something within me, obviously feelings of love that just, as I say, I'd gone through getting all this shit from the world, and it wasn't all shit. Like, people were still good to me. I had good friends and what have you. But him coming along just really, really changed things. Like, I so wish I still had the things I used to think in my head. Like, but my brain's been so trash recently. Like, I can't just as easily pull these things out. It just showed me a different side to the world, I guess. A good side to the world. One that, like, I happily would take on day after day, and if I could even project, like, 1/10 of the feeling that he was able to make me feel, if I could project that onto other people in the world, like, that would be, I would consider that a job well done, a life well lived. If I could replicate the things that he was able to do for me and for other people. And as I found out from some of his friends, I'll get onto that in a minute. So he and I, we became really close. We just started hanging out all the time. We'd be talking to each other like all day about anything and everything. Like, really good friendship as it stands. And I held on. Like, it only took me, like, I think it was a month to realise that, like, I was in love with him. And I think I told him, like, toward the end of that first month as well. Like, and I didn't I didn't just kind of, like, go in softly. Like, I laid on the full fucking shebang with the poor guy, just because to me it was so, like, alien. It was like creating a masterpiece. Like, you want to show it to everybody, you want everybody to see it. And so, like, I told him, he was as nice as, like, you could possibly be considering the circumstances. Yeah, he was my first proper kiss as well. Like, I'd have kissed people in the past, but he was the one that I consider, like, my first actual kiss. I still remember the smile on his face when I did it as well. The issue was, of course, in my head, even though it wasn't going to, like, I think I'd laid it on too thick, as his friends had ended up telling me, like, he was attracted to me, but I don't even know what to go with that, but actually it just didn't work out, I guess. Again, I'm certain I probably laid it on too thick, and then I couldn't drop it, I couldn't let it go. So it was like, I would always be trying to not initiate something, but I guess just not being cool about the situation. Probably you could say not being respectful of the fact that he just wanted to be friends. And as I'm sure you can understand, as I say, it's like, for me, it was such a high feeling to have. And then if you think that you're, like, slowly slipping away from that, like, you want to grasp onto it, like, as hard as you can. I put here, it's like a child, like, with their toys or something, like the first toy that they get. Like, you know, they don't want to lose it. As I say, it was the feeling. It was the first feeling for me. Like, and I'd probably gone through almost every other feeling that you can do in life when I was growing up, like fear, resentment, happiness, of course, as well. But this was, I mean, fuck all the other feelings, to be honest with you. This, as I said, this was the first feeling. This was just embedded itself in my soul, and anybody who's been in love will be able to tell you. I did used to always say this thing. It's slipping in and out of my head as I'm here. I think it was basically saying, like, the majority of people, like, they're going to meet someone and, by their own definition, fall in love with somebody who, chances are, they know from work or from their own hometown. It's like, you've not met every single human being in the world, nor have people really met that many people in the world at all. And yet they end up, people say, oh no, it's the love of my life, the greatest love of my life. And it's like, you've barely even walked down the street to find this person in some cases. And I think it was just seeing that in other people, and then feeling what I felt for him. I genuinely thought that, like, I was, I suppose, a 1%er in the true love category. Like, and obviously I know now it's not my place to say that, because as everybody in the world hasn't met everybody else in the world, I certainly haven't felt the same feelings as everybody else in the world, the way that they would experience their own feelings. As I was much more like poetic with the way I did things back then. And yet we still continue to hang out for a good couple of years, to be honest with you. Like, saw him get girlfriends, one of whom was like a complete cunt to me, but I ended up making amends with her because she got not attacked in town, but briefly she'd gone in, like everybody in town that hung out, there were like 50 of us, it was a massive crowd, like everybody hated, everybody thought she was annoying, but for some reason he liked her. And yeah, she'd gone in and bought some flumps one time, and she was just sat by herself because the only people that were in town were the people that didn't like her, and she must have been waiting for friends, and some chavvy girls came up, like took her flumps off her. And I'm gonna try not to laugh because I don't want to be a dickhead. Like, beat her with a flump. Like a flump, it's like a soft string marshmallow thing. Just it was stupid. And like I remember just everybody was just watching it happen. Like, nobody cared to intervene. Like, nobody cared about her in that sense, because she'd made too many enemies. She's earned too many enemies. And yet she looked over after the flump assault, and she just locked eyes with me, and you could just tell that was that thing after everything that she'd done to me. And like, she wasn't respectful at all about my feelings for, I suppose, her boyfriend, so you could say that. But I knew him first, bitch. No, she just wasn't respectful of the fact that he and I were still friends, and that it was a somewhat complicated situation. And she'd just do everything to go out of her way to like try and make me jealous or make me feel bad or what have you. So she locked eyes with me, and just everything that she'd done to me, you could tell. And now it's like, and I've just seen her in this position. Like, I knew at that moment I could have just laughed in her face, could have started making fun of her. Everyone would have joined in, would have ruined her, would have broken her. I didn't. Instead, I walked over to her, looked in the eye, and just said, "Are you okay?" It wasn't a serious assault. She just got smacked around with a flump. Like, there were no punches thrown, there were no actual slaps thrown. It was a fucking flump assault. And so she and I kind of became okay with each other. I'm sure friends is a word you could use, but I probably wouldn't have used it at the time. And yeah, so fuck her as an interlude. And he and I, again, I think it just started going on more and more and more, and I think it was just, as much as he was trying to salvage us as friends, I just couldn't let him do that, because in my mind I wanted to salvage a relationship out of it, because I loved him, and it just kind of, he'd be going that way to try and, you know, make a friendship out of it, but then I'd be going along but then undermining him the entire way, trying to make a relationship out of it. And it just, again, it was a bad situation. It was too much, too young, and yeah, it's, I suppose it, of course, I think everybody, well, not everybody's bad. I do know there's a saying that say, like, if your first love has to end badly, just as kind of like a rite of passage in life. But yeah, I ended up getting him the tattoo. I couldn't get the original tattoo that I'd drawn and I wanted, because it just cost way too much. I didn't have the money. I think I was 17 when I got that done as well, and the tattoo was nearly that. But as far as being the best of us, and just deep understanding of like why I love this guy, and I still do, of course. I still love all the people I've been in love with. Like, I never disrespect the feelings that I felt like that. Just my own sake, and the people I felt them for mean too much to me, for me to, again, this is still that schizoid thing, I still will hold it in an otherworldly way, in the sense that I won't allow it to become tarnished by this world. But the last time I was able to check in on him, he was volunteering in like Calcutta or Timbuktu, one of those places with those names that's just like in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. He was volunteering at a children's brain surgery clinic, teaching them English after they had their operations, and, you know, while they recovered, so that they could get a really good paying job in their own countries and live like a good, happy life for themselves, and a rich life. as opposed to the impoverished life that the majority of whichever country it was living. And I mean, come the fuck on, doing that, volunteering to do that as well. Like, as I said, honestly, the best of us. I'm certain you can understand why he would have changed my life. And God bless him for it. I wouldn't have wanted anybody else to be in that position, as in the position of the first person that I fell in love with. Like, it was an honor to have him in my life for the time that I did. After he and I kind of drifted apart, the next guy, I think it's probably like two or 3 years maybe, until I met somebody else, or fell in love with somebody else, I should say, and this was a guy called Joey. And that was, as I said, that was my next feeling, as I put it here. And he, like, I genuinely had gone through a period where I was just like, right, because of my condition, I didn't really know what it was at the time, because of my condition, there's, statistically, I'm just not ever going to fall in love with somebody again. It's just, it was so rare that even happened to me in the first place, because it should have been almost impossible from what I was, from how I was concerned. And then I met Joey, and he just seems to take like an immediate liking to me, which, and I him as well. Like I said in another video that I've done, just like, he was so good looking, and obviously that did help, because, you know, if you're attracted to somebody, it's good if they're also attractive. But I couldn't even think how to describe to you, like, the benevolence of his face. And yeah, he and I, like, became best friends. I know very much he kind of emulated me, as a lot of guys end up falling for me do, whether it's physically or they'll try and do it like mentally, emotionally, to try and come across the way that I do, or try and think about things the way that I do, because it just has a certain effect on the world and other people. And he was very much so one of those people. He and I were probably friends for a couple of months at first, and best friends. And after a while, I'd decided to, like, tell him how I feel, because I got the impression that he was attracted to me as well, but I couldn't say I knew it for certain. Yeah, I told him how I felt one day, whilst we were in, like, a restaurant. We were, like, surrounded by a takeaway, not a restaurant, nothing quite as fancy as that. And it was, as I say, that was the schizotypal and the schizoid part conflicting with each other, where you'd think I'd want to do this kind of conversation in a, you know, a private environment, but for whatever reason, like, that schizoid thing just gets overcome by the schizotypal thing trying to defend itself, trying to defend myself internally. And yeah, I kind of, like, made a joke about it while we were in public. We weren't with other people, but we were surrounded by other people. And obviously he didn't reciprocate the feeling, which, you know, it's, even if he did feel that way, because he was a straight guy. Though he did, as James did, they went to that emo phase where they claim they're bisexual, they'll kiss a few guys, but they're not realistically ever going to, like, either have sex with a guy or try and commit to a guy for life. And because of the situation, how it had been with James, I'd had this thought in my head of just, I never want to, because there was such sadness after the whole James thing. I had the position in my head of just, I'd never want to live to lose that again. Like, it just hurt too much, and it was, I couldn't experience that emotion again, not of the loss, but of loving somebody, only to then lose it, or to not have it. Like, it just, again, I wish I could just pull me from that era out, and he could just let it he could just talk to you about it. And it clocked onto me that was what the situation was now with Joey. Like, I felt this way about him, but nothing could be done about it. It just broke me inside. Sorry, that's not me getting choked up, that's just my voice. I told you, fucking, I felt so shit this morning. And yeah, at that point, I did what I kind of didn't have the balls to do, because I knew what it was going to be like going through all the experience of the loss of losing it, and how long it was going to last, and how bad it was going to feel. Whereas with James, it was like just every single day you'd have the feeling. So with Joey, knowing what was coming up and realizing, great, I'm in that exact same position again. Like I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Don't want to be alive anymore. And I used to take these sleeping meds. I've talked about this more in my suicide video. Not my suicide video. My video where I talk about the time I tried to commit suicide. And yeah, I used to take these sleeping meds just because it made it, like, it kind of washed away the barrier, but it also kind of washed away like any memory of doing anything in the day. But it just made it a lot easier to be around people, surrounded by people, and not have any like internal conflicting emotions or like anxiety and things like that. And I had like a good couple of hundred like antidepressants and antipsychotics that I never used to take. But when I got a new prescription for them, I also got prescriptions for these muscle relaxants and these sleeping pills, and I really wanted the fucking sleeping pills. So I just saved up all of the antidepressants, the antipsychotics. And yeah, after this thing with Joey, I don't know how long it was after it, I just think like the sadness set in, and I just decided that I was just gonna end what was a miserable existence, and was certainly going to be a miserable existence, because it was just going to be too hard or too complicated or just unlikely that I ever get to experience that love, that good thing, and then actually get to be with it, as opposed to it just being a feeling of mine that nothing could be done with. So yeah, like one day, I couldn't even like reiterate to you what the thought pattern exactly was. One day I just decided to take as many of these meds as I could, as many as I thought were going to kill me, and yeah, and just be done with everything. And but then, like, after, I mean, it was probably about 100 I'd had on the first day, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but just more than anybody would possibly be able to take, I guess, to try and commit suicide, simply for the fact that they probably wouldn't have access to that many. But I'd had this morbid thing where it's like, if I ever was going to commit suicide, I knew how I was going to do it, and it was that bag full of these medications. And I'd wake up the next day, I'd still be alive, I'd take more, wake up the next day, still be alive, take more. In the span of a week, like, I took all of the antidepressants, all the antipsychotics, and then I was doing like the antihistamines, like ibuprofen, paracetamol, anything that I could get my hands on. I was just throwing it into my system. So it was probably about a week and a half, probably not even a week and a half, probably about 5 days actually, when I'd had all of these things. And yeah, like, for the next few months, my body was just destroyed. Like, I was having seizures, my body was like convulsing all the time. I couldn't breathe, hallucinating, couldn't walk. Like, it was awful, it was painful. Like, I mean, it's really sad for me if I were to just lay back and think about things. Anytime I think about that time in my life, like, it doesn't depress me, but like, it does upset me on some level, because I know how sad I was, and part of me can still feel it. But I mean, I even say to this day, I know that was what I wanted at the time, and I do regret the fact that I wasn't able to kill myself at that point. I know it's a bit grim, but it was what I wanted. Like, I was being true to myself and my feelings, and don't get me wrong, obviously I would have missed out on so many other things that have happened in my life, and so many other people, well, 2 other people after this, just in reference to guys that I would happily say now I would never want to lose the opportunity to experience what I experienced with them. But I do still, part of me does still wish that I had successfully managed to kill myself, just because it was what I wanted. It was part of my story. So yeah, like I never even told him what had happened, like why I was doing it. I wasn't doing it because of him, like I was doing it because of myself and all of the circumstances surrounding it. And I do believe it was like my friend, the one person who knew that I was trying to kill myself, did tell him, but I don't think he ever brought it up to me really during that time period. And so yeah, after that, when all the medication had finally like settled inside me and I realized I was still alive, like my mentality completely changed about things. I got it to the point where I was like, right, I understand that I'm not going to be a normal average human being, and that it's just doing a detriment to myself the more that I try and force this personality onto other people, not onto other people but out there to the world, that other people need to know as me. That I stopped living for that. I stopped living for other people and for that side of me that was created, I guess, to appease other people and to make it okay for me to be around them. And I just started being as honest to myself about everything as I could, including the fact that, you know, chances are I probably would be alone for the rest of my life, because I don't get to feel like emotions. I don't get to feel emotions toward people, and things are just like very different with me, very different. So just like I was just being quiet. I wouldn't speak just for the sake of making small talk, and like I wouldn't force myself to laugh or to smile at things that didn't quite literally force that reaction out of me, like uncontrollable laughter or something. And I'd just gone into town one day for whatever reason and got the bus home, and when I got home I had a message waiting, a message from Joey that was saying that he'd seen me in town. We hadn't seen each other for like a few months at this point, because the suicide thing got to the point where like, I couldn't leave the house, I couldn't go out and walk, and when I finally did kind of become better, as in the medication was kind of working its way out of me, I just didn't choose to go and hang around any of those people or those places anymore, because I couldn't even tell you why. I guess it's so long ago now, but I think I was just focusing on me, and I wasn't bullshitting myself thinking that I could live a normal life in the outside world with other people. So I just thought to kind of work on myself, but not in a way where I'm building for myself. And so it turns out Joey had seen me in the bus station this one day when I got into town, messaged me asking like for a catch up to hang out. I agreed. We went and met, and obviously I don't think, well, there was no way that he was expecting such a drastic change in the personality. Like, he knew me as everybody else did for the schizotypal side, and now he was meeting me as the schizoid, independently, completely the schizoid side, because there was no bullshit from the schizotypal part. There was no safety net, I guess. And this was what I consider the happiest point in my life, when I wasn't bullshitting about anything, even though you would think from the outside I was perceivably like depressed or upset or anything, just because I wouldn't want to talk or I wouldn't be engaging in conversation. But that was just because that's just not actually who I am. Like, I'm not a big talker. I don't really enjoy conversing with people that much. And so yeah, we met up. We just went to have like a drink at a pub, just like one or two, because I didn't like staying places with people, because I knew that the more I stayed around people, the more that the schizotypal thing would try and creep its way in to defend the fact that at that point I'd begin to wish like I was alone. I didn't want to be around people, and like whoever I was hanging out with would be lasting too long. And just because of something that I'd said, he ended up like throwing his arms around me, like throwing himself into me to give me a hug, because I think he could tell that, like, even though I wasn't saying anything or doing anything to imply, I think he could tell I did have like the weight of my own world on my shoulders, which we all do, but I really do mean that in a different sense. Like, I was bearing it without any protection, like the schizotypal side. Like, I wasn't. It was just different. I was different. And so he put his arms around me and just gave me this hug out of nowhere. And like, for the first time in months, like, I actually smiled. Like, it was that uncontrollable thing that just forced me to smile. I couldn't stop myself. And like, I kind of turned to him and just said, like, "What are you doing?" I can still remember it today, like just it breaking open on my face, the smile. And so he and I ended up like hanging out more, and that was at that point because of the position I was in with the schizoid personality disorder. Things very much changed. Like as I began hanging out with people again, I noticed the entire personality just melded together so well for quite a long time, because it was always that thing of because I didn't have the emotion, I could very much just analyze, be analytical about things that people were saying, and I could help them or offer them advice or whatever in a way that other people couldn't, because I wasn't being influenced by my own needs or desires, because I didn't have any needs or desires. And yeah, I mean, like I fucking missed a popular around that time. I'd have like random people that were at pubs or that worked at pubs that me and another friend would start frequenting after this, just like adding me on Facebook. And one time, this one girl who worked there, she just came outside when she finished her shift and just sat down with the two of us and just, I mean, credit to her, that's a ballsy move, and just initiate conversation. Like she and I became good friends, and it was just like people would listen to me when I was talking at pubs as well, because I'd very much like played for the world, because I knew people would be listening, and I'd always like keep myself up on the news and what have you, and I'd always think about things in a different way. I'd always find there were people like listening into me, and so I'd effectively play to my audience. And it worked really fucking well for quite a long time. Unfortunately, the girl that I was hanging out with at this point, she put me in a shitty situation where, and things were great with Joey, but this girl put me in a shitty situation where she had an abusive boyfriend from when she was living in the country, and she got him to, when they like reunited, she got him to move over to England, and nobody wanted to know this guy, be friends with him, but because I was her best friend, she just kept on insisting. And I said to her, like, you know my feelings about him. I'd met him at this point. You know my feelings about him. I don't want to meet him. I of course don't want you with him, but if this is the man that you're choosing to be with in your life, I won't try and discourage you from that, but in my own life, I'm making the choice that I don't want to be friends with him. I don't want to meet him. And she just, she wouldn't drop it. She just kept on, like, every time we were hanging out, or like once a week, she'd be asking me, you should really come around and have dinner with us. And I said, nope. And then one time, one stupid drunk night, I broke, and I was just like, fuck, I need her to stop asking me this question. But instead of saying like, you need to stop asking, it's irritating me now, I just gave in to her, because in my head I was saying this, the schizotypal saying, like, this is when it overtook the schizoid, got me to just be like, all right, I'll go meet him this one time, and then I never have to meet him again, and she'll stop fucking asking me. Of course, that wasn't how it turned out at all, because instead, now that I'd officially met him once and was obviously nice to him and all that shit, she then got it in her head, oh great, we're now a friend group, you, me, and my boyfriend. And then she'd be inviting me round to theirs more, and I'd do it, but I'd always try and encourage it, like, no, I'll come meet you in town for a drink, just me and you. But then I'd placate her by, every once in a while being like, yeah, okay, we'll go for yours for a drink, or have some food or what have you, or she'd say like, my boyfriend wants to cook us all dinner, and just so you can get an impression of this guy. Like, I won't tell all of their dirty laundry, it's not my place, but she has lost all of her friends in life, just because of this guy. Nobody can stand to be around him. Like, nobody can stand to be around this fucking cunt. And then because I was getting forced in this position more, it made me acquiesce on certain other things in my life, where instead of doing the strong thing and saying, no, I'm not doing this, or I don't want to do that, I'd start just appeasing other people in certain situations more and more, which just meant that I myself, if you want to call it the schizoid part, just started becoming less and less important in my own life, though it was always very important, just because it got overcome by the schizotypal, the living for other people side of things. And then this is when I started taking them sleeping pills again. And so that was just how I started getting back on the sleeping pills. And but as far as Joey and I go, like at this point he had his own place to live. It's like he'd invite me around like once or twice a week. We'd stay over, and like everybody who really knew us as best friends, Joey and I, they'd always either assume that we were a couple, or those of them who were close enough to me to know that's not the case always assumed that he was, obviously after the fact, assumed he was kind of leading me on a bit. Because I know an issue with things like that is some of the straight guys, even if they don't want me being with somebody else. Like, they still like me being theirs in a sense. And yeah, like, just so whenever we stay at Joey's, like, he'd always ask for a massage. So like, we'd just be in our underwear and we'd give him like a back massage. And it was all, but I think because he was straight, I think it's always the guys, and because of how I am with my schizotypal, I seem to always be like the alpha in a conversation, if you will, or at least back then. That these guys would always be expecting me to make the first move on them, whereas in my head, I'm like, no, I'm like so afraid of that, or like that it would go wrong, or I don't want to do that and then get rejected, that I'm always waiting for them to make the first move because they're the straight guys, I guess. And I will say as well, I think I always go for straight guys because in my own head, if they make that move to be with me in like a physical way, even if they like change their minds or they regret it afterward, they can never say, oh no, it was nothing, it didn't happen, it didn't do this, because it's always going to be like, well, your actions have spoken much louder than your words are right now. And I have the safety in the schizoid part of me to say it's like them saying that it may have meant nothing or they never actually felt that way about me is a complete lie, because it got to the point where we were physical with each other. And yeah, so like Joey and I were just really good friends. It was a really good friendship. Seeing him through like so many girlfriends as well, to the point on Valentine's Day he went to see his girlfriend for like 2 hours and then wanted to hang out with me for the rest of the day. And because he was like growing his hair a little bit and doing it in like a ponytail as I used to do back in the day, I still do now, but just, I mean, it's cold outside, so, and I'm fucking homeless, like I need all the warmth I can get. He would start wearing rings and everything, like dressing how I was. So we went to Argos, he was going to get one, and I just thought I'd get myself another one as well. And I found a ring that I wanted, he found a ring that he wanted, and when we went to buy them, it turns out the ring that he was going to get, they only had in my size. The ring that I was going to get, they only had in his size. So on Valentine's Day, we ended up buying these rings and then giving them to each other, which is, again, I've tried to show this before. This ring, it's got Roman numerals on it. You can't really tell, unfortunately. But yeah, like, and I still wear that to this day. Like, it's one of my most treasured possessions. And but then because there was the conflicting thing with my friend, and then having to be around people, and then because I became reliant on the sleeping pills, it just, the whole situation ended up culminating in the thing. Joe and I went to a party one night, and we went downstairs for some reason. Obviously I'm like off my sweet fucking tits on these sleeping meds, and I decide, again, the stupidest decision to make. I decided at that moment to try initiating a physical relationship with him. I won't go into it too much, but like, I asked him if he wanted servicing downstairs, and this is the part that kind of like breaks my heart in a sense. I still remember, even with like all the haze of the sleeping meds and everything, I still remember him like looking into my eyes. It was only the two of us downstairs, obviously. Everybody else was upstairs in somebody's room. I still remember him turning to look at me and saying, okay, but it wasn't like a filthy kind of gross thing. Like, I could see it in his eyes that this was like a big moment for him as well. Because I think it's, once the initial phase of like however many years it would have been before that, when I first told him how I felt about him, it didn't work out. Like, it became a lot easier for me to be myself around him after the suicide attempt, for the fact that there was just kind of nothing to lose for me, so I didn't need to act or try and protect certain parts of me. I could just be who I was, and everything in my life just worked out very well. after the suicide thing, personality-wise. And yeah, I just remember him turning to me, and yeah, him just saying like, okay, and me just fucking, so you can imagine it, like on these sleeping meds, like if I was at a pub, like I'd be knocking drinks over, depending on how fucked I was off of them. So yeah, the servicing thing, like I know he made me stop like shortly after beginning, because it just there's no way it would have been satisfying in any way, and I think he's probably realized that this isn't the time for that to be happening. Like, we had so many other times, and like I'd always wanted to say to him as well, like, would he be the first, for like a birthday present to me, would he have sex with me, would he be the first person that I had sex with? Because like I always wanted it to be somebody that I actually really cared about. Like I didn't just want to throw it away. I wanted the person who I was with for the first time to know that, not talking highly of myself, but like I did used to get like a lot of attention. I was cute as fuck when I was young, still pretty damn handsome now. These videos probably speak differently to that, but but I always wanted the guy that I was finally with to know that I could have had not anybody, but I could have had so many other people, but I chose to wait until I felt that emotion towards somebody who just happened to be them, just so they would understand exactly how much they mean to me, even if I couldn't word it to them. And I absolutely wanted it to be him, but I never asked him if he would do that, because again, I'm bad at making the first move. I thought, what if he says no, if it ruins the friendship, this and that. And instead I end up, because of all the fucking circumstances at the time, I end up fucking ruining it anyway. Them fucking sleeping meds. And yeah, so like the next morning, after the party, like everybody's downstairs, and he kind of like tries to cover for the fact that he and I like dissipated for a while during the night. He tries to cover for it anyway, which it was a bad cover, but it's like whatever, I let him have it. He was claiming that we were having an argument, so we didn't. And yeah, I didn't even actually remember what happened initially in the morning, but then it came back to me later on in the day. And so we were still hanging out for like, months or however long afterward. And I tried a few times to ask him whether what I thought had happened that night had happened, and he would always like tell me no. And I could tell it was like weird for him, because obviously I don't think he wanted that to ruin the friendship. He didn't want to admit that happened, and I'm sure if there was still a part of him that wished to engage in that way with me, he didn't want that night to be the acknowledgement of, or the culmination of all of that. Like, he may have wished to save it for another time, a better time, or he may have just taken a chance on that experience, and then it didn't happen the way that he was thinking it would potentially happen in his head. Because I say, it was so fucking stupid of me to do it in the manner in which I did, like on the fucking sleeping meds. But again, that's why I had the balls to go out and be around people, because it got rid of my social anxiety, but it also got rid of my fucking senses. As far as the sleeping pills go, though, once like Joey and our friendship kind of like pitted out a little bit from that, because again, it kind of became like the James thing, except about this one night I kept on, because I knew it had happened, and I kept on trying to get him to say it happened, and then maybe we could try again, for lack of a better term. And yeah, that just wasn't how Joey was going to let it happen, which understandable. Yeah, it just really put an awkward barrier into the friendship that was just really hard for either of us to manage to clear out. But I mean, I did, as far as the sleeping meds go, after that night and after my friendship with Joey just kind of faded. Honestly, that the fucking sleeping meds cost me so much, cost me him. But once I kind of realized that like he and I weren't a thing anymore in any regard, I quit those sleeping meds, because they had cost me the most important person in my life, and I had no need for them. Like, social anxiety and shit aside, I was taking them to make myself comfortable being surrounded by like a group of 50 odd people on a mostly daily basis in town, where we all hung out around this like fountain with like the Mosher crew, the goth crew, the emo crew, whatever. And all of those people and all of those means, those needs to why I took those sleeping meds to make myself okay, none of it fucking mattered if the other side of it was, well, yeah, you'll feel okay with your social anxiety and everything, but you'll lose Joey. And even if it was after the fact and he and I weren't hanging out anymore, I still made the choice of just like, they aren't fucking worth it. It was a retroactive choice, and though it had no effect at that moment anymore, or not in the way that I would have wanted it to, I still quit them, still fucking quit them. Because just the thought of them just fucking disgusted me. Like, again, I couldn't even properly describe it to you. It was just so horrible, having lost him like that. Just because it's such a stupid fucking addiction, if you want to even call it an addiction. So yeah, I quit those motherfuckers. Never touched them since. Don't want to touch them again. Just not worth it. Not worth it. And they're always going to be stigmatized in my head as the thing that cost me. The thing that cost me him. The thing that cost me Joey. And as far as what is he doing in his life now, I know the last time I was able to check in with him, he is now, he was doing a course, like he'd gone back to university or a college thing or something to do a course in like welding or grafting or something like that. And I do know after he and I had hung out, not that I think it has anything to do with me, but after he and I had stopped hanging out, he himself kind of developed like some really bad social anxieties, and like he would stop going out and seeing people, I would stop going to the pub, and yeah, his life just kind of changed in itself as well. And like, you never would have thought he'd have been a guy like that. Like, it's just not his personality whatsoever to be socially anxious or what have you. But as far as I know now, he's got a long-term girlfriend, they've got a house together, he's doing well for himself, and yeah, I'm very happy to hear that. So this next guy is called Alec. You know, actually, I'm just gonna give myself a 5-minute break. Brief intermission, and we're back. This is the wind. So the next guy, Alec, he post-suicide, when Joey and I were like this, like again, the world couldn't have separated us. One of my friends, who also happened to be my dealer for weed, his brother, one of his friends was called Alec, and the first time I ever saw him, I'd gone round to my friend's house. He wasn't back from a gig or something, or maybe he was just picking up, I don't know. And so I ended up hanging out with his brother and his friends. And I saw this guy Alec for the first time, and I could kind of tell that he was into me, like from the first time I saw him. He's not he's a completely straight guy as well, all that. But yeah, it's like, I think the first time we ever met, I was on the sleeping meds as well, I was drinking, still during that period, but it was getting like, you know, it was getting toward the bad situation, but I was still a very good person, not a good person like morally, yes, morally, but I was still like, you know, able to be like funny, great conversations, people wanted to be around me, all that. Yeah, we ended up hanging out, and I could kind of tell he was into it. He ended up nibbling on my ear the first time that I saw him. No idea how the fuck that came about, but it did. And yeah, he was, and obviously I had this thing with Joey anyway, so I wouldn't really consider anything with anybody else. But as well, when I first met Alec, I think he was like 14 or 15, and I must have been like 19 at the time. It's just like, just a fucking kid, like didn't take what I perceived to be his attraction toward me, like didn't take it seriously. It was just kind of more of a funny thing. But because he and I ended up becoming friends, like obviously through my friend, I got to watch him grow up until, like, we were hanging out until probably shortly before the whole COVID thing happened, actually. It's like we'd been friends for like years. Like I got to watch him grow into an actual man. Now he had, from somebody that he had been with, one of his friends told me he had gay experiences. As far as I'm aware, only with this one person. But then I think when I came along, he kind of put that infatuation or that side of him onto me instead of his friend. I do know his friend was always a bit salty about that, but hey, it is what it is. He and I, as I say, like I think by the time like he was 17 or 18, I kind of did start seeing him in more of a more of an attraction, more from an attraction point of view. Fucking hell. See if I stop talking just and take a break for 5 minutes, I fuck everything up. And yeah, I think he was. Well, I know for a fact he was still attracted to me during those times. I know that he had a thing for me, like for years after this as well. Because again, even to the point where, like, it's weird to explain. Like, some of the last times that we've been hanging out, so he would have been like 24. There was still always like a particular closeness between us, and like we even had some girls that were hanging out with us that would say like they would always feel as if not that they were third wheeling, but as if they got the impression that Alec didn't like that we were hanging out, as in that the girl was there as well, and he would have preferred it to just be the two of us. And so yeah, as I say, anything to do with him, always just put it like in the back of my mind, just because it was like, oh, you know, he's cute. It's a guy who's got a crush on me, but it's like he's fucking 14, 15. And by the time he actually came into himself, we'd had, as I say, I think he was about 17 at this time. I don't know. Could have been 18. I know that he'd been with a girlfriend that he ended up being with like on and off for a few years, and she'd ended up cheating on him. And like he was really upset about it, to the point where like the first time I saw him after it had happened, like we're having a party at my mate's house, at the dealer's house, and I walk in and like he's in tears and like he's being consoled by however many people, and the second that he sees me, he just says my name and just runs right up to me, like pins me up against this shed, puts his arms around me. And obviously, you know, I'm just like, you know, what's wrong? Like, you okay? A couple of days after that, he was obviously still upset, but there was another party at the same place, and he'd gone upstairs just to like lie down in the darkness, which one of my favorite things to do. So when I got there, I inquired about where he was. I was told, so I went upstairs to see him. I'm trying to remember exactly where Joey and I were in our relationship at this point. Yeah, so I laid down on the bed with him, just put my arm around him. We were just staring at the ceiling in the darkness and just let him talk about whatever he wanted to. And because this friendship group as well, we are very, or we were, I'm not part of that friendship group anymore. They're very like huggy, touchy, feely, in a good way, in a nice, loving way. Not in like fucking orgies every day or anything like that. And yeah, so I just put my arm around him. So I was laid here and he was laid there. So I just put my arm around him. I was just like stroking his shoulder with my thumb. And yeah, I used to be able to remember the thing that it was that I said to him at the time. That kind of like led to something, not led to anything really. I'm really messing this up, aren't I? I suppose because I don't have like a massive long story to tell about Alec. More of the story happens afterward. And yeah, I said something to him, and at that point he turns over while he's in my arm and puts his hand there on my shoulder and starts like, you know, rubbing my shoulder with his thumb back. And it was, I really need to remember what it was. It was something just implying basically about if you have like attractions toward people, and I can't for the life of me remember it. Basically, it's if, from what I was saying, him turning around and putting his arm on my shoulder at that point and like leaning into me, it's, you would have only made that move at that moment after what I'd said if you yourself were trying to give an implication of something that you felt. And of course he does that, and I immediately know what the move is. Like I can tell that he's into me, and obviously I know he's been into me for like a very long time since he first saw me. And yeah, just in my head at that point, I'm just like, fuck, right, I need to make my move now. I need to kiss him or something, because this is the moment that it's gonna happen. But then, because I'm like so nervous, I don't end up doing it, and I only put it off for like 30 seconds, because I think I thought to myself, I know for a fact I thought to myself, I was like, right, I'll say one more thing to give the implication that, like, you know, or to try and make it so I can get some reassurance that this is what he was also trying to do. And yeah, so I take like 30 seconds, don't make my move in that 30 seconds, go to start saying something else, and then the fucking bedroom light comes on. This bowling ball of a human being just storms his way upstairs, like, hey, are you alright? Proper loud ass motherfucker. And like we kind of like, you know, unlink ourselves like quickly so nobody can see. And yeah, this guy comes in, and again, just no tact in how he deals with anything. And he started like emulating dry humping Alec, and obviously moment killed, moment gone, ruined. Like Alec was saying to him, like, I won't say his name, but he was saying, we should go downstairs, so he and I could, you know, just continue talking or whatever was going to happen. And this guy just wasn't, again, thick as pig shit, just wasn't taking the hint, wasn't getting what was going on, and he just thinks that Alec is being really pissy with him. So yeah, Alec gets up like upset and just goes to leave or go downstairs, and then this guy fucking kicks him in the back and just sends him, I'm laughing now, I've never actually laughed about this in my life, but it's just, but the situation is just fucking crazy. Like kicks him in the back, sends him down these stairs. Obviously this guy's gets hurt, gets injured. He's all right. I mean, like, we'd all like been drinking as well, so he didn't exactly take the tumble that poorly. And so Alec just leaves the party, leaves the house, and I'm just like to this guy, I'm just like, you fucking moron, you fucking idiot, as if you've just done that. Kicking him and interrupting us. And so I go out the door, go find Alec, walk him home, make sure he's okay. And yeah, that was like, I mean, my fault. It should have taken a chance when I had it in that 30 seconds, but also this dickhead's fault for just being himself, I guess. And yeah, so nothing else happens between Alec and I that's like in the same kind of manner as that, or indicative of anything else happening. We just remain friends for a good couple of years. And by the time he's like 22, 23, we actually, when I'm trying to remember the time frame and all of this now. I think after the suicide thing, I stopped hanging out with that friendship group just because I stopped hanging out with everybody. And I hadn't seen him for years, actually, at that point. I think the last time I'd seen him was probably maybe when he was 18 or 19, because I think he went away to university. And then I just didn't see him for a good couple of years. The thing with Joey and I happened, and I think actually it was around the time that I was kind of, I knew the Joey thing was no longer happening, that we weren't even talking to each other anymore, and I was just reminiscing about Alec, and I obviously remembered that night, and as I say, I'd never really considered him as like boyfriend material, or somebody that I'd be attracted to per se, because as I say, I first met him when he was 14, just thought his attraction to me was cute, just throw away, it didn't mean anything to me, but Well, sorry, not that he didn't mean anything to me, but it's obviously not anything I'm ever going to pursue. And yeah, and then obviously I started thinking more about the time when we had hung out together, and then I started remembering that night from a few years later, and I think all of the actual emotion that I felt toward him hit me at once, like, because Joey and anything with Joey was like out of the way, out of the picture. Like, what I actually felt for Alec that night had came back to me, just hit me really hard, and like it just kind of devastated me, because I realized again, like, as much as it was kind of like that night on the bed, it was a nice thing, like, you know, as I say, like, it'd come into himself. It was a man now, so it was cute. Everybody thought he was cute. I kind of realized what I'd had the chance with him, and that I didn't have that anymore, because I didn't even know him, and I'd never really chased it up after that evening. I just let it slip away, I guess. Yeah, I got like a real big funk about it, and I think as fucked up as it sounds, I was effectively then mourning the lost relationship that I'd never had, because I'd never even tried to engage in that relationship. I'd taken it for granted, I guess you could say. And so yeah, I started just going into that process again of like the after love thing, where it's just all the negative things like come up in my head and my body, and I start feeling like shit. So I just started going to the pub and just drinking every day, and just like thinking about it and like reminiscing about it. Just thinking, I was like, you're a fucking idiot, as if you had all that time and you just never did anything with it. And yeah, after doing that for about a week, I was at that pub on a Friday or a Saturday night, and I felt this tap on my shoulder, and I don't know how I knew, but I immediately knew it was somebody on this side tapping me. I'm not telling you to look that way, but I still looked that way anyway, and I smiled for a second, because I can't explain how I know this. I knew it was going to be him. I knew it was going to be him. So I turned back around, and lo and behold, it was him. He'd come back for like the weekend or a week from university or something, and he was just in the pub having drinks with his mates and his girlfriend, the one that had cheated on him. And that was that. It was just again one of them things where God just sorts you out, I guess, as he did with everything. Like, as I said, James, Joey, Alec, and the other guy I'll speak about. And that was just it. We just started becoming like friends again, but then like really good friends this time, like best friends again, Alec and I. And then that just persisted for years, and then we finished university and moved back to Warrington. Like, we'd just go out and hang out with each other all the time. And I did one night, again, I think it was when I was going through like a bit of a dodgy time myself, which is when I always seem to reach for that love feeling. I was walking home one time, and I asked him about that night from years ago. And 1 second, let's make sure nobody's a dog walker. As I was walking home, I said to Alec, like, do you remember that night, by the way, and etc., and explained, like, you know, what was the deal with that? Like, were you attracted to me? Was there ever anything there? And he'd broken up with his girlfriend at this point again, at this new point, and he was so against anybody thinking that like he was gay or would be bisexual or anything. He just reacted to it really, really poorly, I would say. I know a lot of people have always had the inkling about him that he might be into guys as well. As I say, I do know, not that I should be airing his stuff, but whatever, it's not as if I'm putting a picture of him up. I know for a fact he has. Fucking hell, I've not even been looking at my notes for so long. A lot of other people have wondered if he was gay. And he insisted, like, no, he also said he didn't remember that night. He's not gay at all. And that would be the thing, like, I'd be asking him about the night, and he'd just be like, I'm not gay. I'd I'd say to him, Alec, I'm not asking you if you're gay, I'm not saying you're gay, I'm just asking you about that particular night. Like, he was so against anybody even thinking that of him. But I know he has had gay experiences in the past, like, but it was supposed to be just between him and this guy and very hush hush. But when I've talked to the guy that he'd done it with, the guy opened up to me about the fact that they had done stuff together. And yeah, I mean, at one point the first time I ever met Alec's mom, actually, it was she was drunk. I mean, God bless her. Her ex-husband, Alec's father, had killed himself, and they were having a wake at the pub, ironically, where Alec and I reunited. And his mom had overheard us, like, when we were talking on this other night. And when she kind of clocks onto who I am, she just pointed me, she screamed, thank you. Because I'm assuming she's always had a bit of an inkling herself. But yes, I took Alec's word as, no, there was nothing, and he's not gay. And we still just remained like best friends, hanging out all the time, and we would get a bit like close contact with each other. And like, I know one thing I used to do, if like we were crossing a road, I'd always like put my hand on the small of his back and just kind of like nudge him along a little bit. And like, he started doing that to me as well, and it was just, again, it was a really nice friendship. Unfortunately, I know from this string of being cheated on by his girlfriend, he kind of started doing the same thing to her and then to other girls. And the way that he and I ended our friendship was he had cheated on what was his current girlfriend, who was also one of my mates from the friendship group, with this other girl. He cheated on what was the long-term girlfriend with this one girl. I'm just going to say the names, Libby. He cheated on his girlfriend with this girl, Libby, and because the guy that Alec used to have the gay experiences with was attracted to Libby, there was just a whole situation where they decided to freeze Libby out of the entire friendship group because Alec was the more popular one, more people liked him, and it was going to be harder for them to freeze him out, so they decided to freeze her out. I observed that situation, said that is not fair on this Libby girl at all. Fair enough, she's somewhat culpable, like she knew it was in a relationship, but it should be Alec that's receiving. He received nothing, like no bad things happened to him, nobody chastised him for it. Libby got all of it dumped on her, and I didn't think that was fair, and I didn't even fucking know at this point. I think I'd seen it a couple of times at a pub, hadn't really spoken to her. First time I ever saw me, she checked me out, which is a bit weird, but hey ho. So then Libby and I became friends, and I proper sorted her out, like I was like her only friend, and then I got her to be friends with this other girl that I was kind of working on. It was like a bit of a nebbish mess, different story for a different time. And after about 1.5 years, I finally managed to introduce Libby back into this friendship group. And by this point, Alec was seeing this other girl called Lauren from within the friendship group, and Alec and Libby effectively picked up right where they left off. He ended up cheating on his girlfriend Lauren with Libby. Libby, being my best friend and I hers, confided in me what had happened. And I didn't know how to handle the situation really, because I wanted to tell Lauren, but at the same time didn't want to hurt Alec, didn't want to ruin his relationship, though he had kind of ruined it. And eventually I did tell Lauren, and she didn't believe me, despite the fact that, I mean, the way that I put it to her, because we had to have the conversation like 3 or 4 times, just because she just wouldn't believe me. But then he'd cheat on it again with Libby, and I'd have to prove it, and literally showing her text, and she couldn't process it. I ended up having to say to Lauren, like, Lauren, sweetheart, I've been getting so much shit for this, like it's absolutely destroying my head having to go through this, like, because I'm in such an awkward position. Me, somebody who's, I'd like to think, has never told a lie to the group, I've not done anything bad, I've always tried to help people, is saying to you, your boyfriend cheating on you, and your boyfriend, who is a serial cheater, who you know has a history of cheating, is saying to you, oh, it's not happening. You can see what it's doing to me, you can see what I'm sacrificing in this, what I'm having to go through by telling you this. Who do you genuinely believe? Who do you think is... Because I mean, if I was lying, surely I'd just drop it and save myself all the hassle. But I wasn't. I wanted to do the right thing. And yeah, she didn't believe me, or she did, but she didn't want to believe. It was such a weird thing. And that just absolutely destroyed my friendship with Alec, because he was going around then calling me a liar, knowing full well that I was telling the truth. And Libby just kind of like stayed out of it, and I don't know how she managed to, because she was also best friends with Lauren by this point. When I'd managed to introduce her back into the group, like those two became best friends. And it's just like, do you seriously, you guys are going out for like, because Libby was cheating on her boyfriend as well with Alec. Like they'd be going out for like double dates like every week, and it's like, are you actually kidding me? You're there like you're buying your girlfriend's meal, and like, but these two are sitting opposite each other thinking, yeah, we're probably gonna shag each other later on behind your backs. It's fucking awful. Like, what a terrible thing to do to somebody. And yeah, it just put such a strain on my friendship with Alec that rightfully so, it got to the point I just threw my hands up. I was like, you know what, I'm fucking done. I'm not even being involved in this situation or this friendship group anymore. Like, you guys suck. And lo and behold, as soon as I, the scapegoat, actually left that situation, funnily enough, at that point, all of their relationships started breaking down, because they no longer had somebody to hate together or to blame their things on. But of course, the situation still continued, the cheating on each other, and what have you. And yeah, so their relationships, their friendships fell apart. The main house that we all used to go to, the dealer's house, like, they've moved away. So, and rightfully so. Like, God was absolutely, I even said to God one night, I said, God, they're in your hands now. I can't deal with them anymore. Whereas I know I could have condemned them for what they were doing to me. I didn't. I still tried to do the best thing I could and say, God, I can't deal with them anymore. They're in your hands. You deal with them. And God did. After I was removed from the situation, the relationships fell apart, their friendships fell apart, and rightfully so. And that was a horrible way for Alec and I to end, because as I say, like, known him since he was fucking 14 up till he was about 24, and it's just, he became such a coward, like such a cowardly human being, to the point where I would even show him the text that Libby had sent, where he's asking her at like 5 in the morning, oh, you want to go for a shag, you can do this. I'm like, Alec, look at the fucking phone, is this not you cheating? And he would just not look at the phone, he would look directly in my eyes or look away, because in his mind, in his cowardly mind, by not looking directly at the phone, he doesn't have to acknowledge it, and he can just say no. I just totally fucking spineless human being. A tiny dick, from what I'm told as well. So that was the Alec experience. Really terrible. Like, it's unfortunate that I will still give him respect, though. I do that more out of respect for myself, that I'm giving him respect. And the other person, the last one, the most recent guy, as of making this video, I'll try and keep this condensed because I'm running out of battery space and battery. I had a flat, I was living by myself, and whereas by this point I'd actually come to not my belief in God, knowing God is real. And after all the times I'd always like think about, what can I do for this person? What can I do to give them the tools to help themselves, or help them with their family situations, or whatever it may be. I sat down one night and I actually thought for myself, I had a selfish thought about who would be my ideal guy, who would be my perfect guy. The boyfriend that I would want to be in love with for the rest of my life. And so I sat back and I thought about all these things. I thought about, I want him to look like Joey. I would want him to like have this, I don't want to say hobbies and stuff like that, but I want him to be like this, be like that. And I know one big thing I'd said was that I wanted him to have like something wrong with him that I could do what I do for a lot of other people, that I end up helping them resolve, or I end up being their rock, just because for me that would further strengthen the relationship if I was the one person who was able to help him in that way. And so yeah, like I prayed for this human being to come into my life, and lo and behold, like 3 weeks later or something, I was on a dating site online. I was just scrolling through and looked at some people, and I saw this guy is called Liam, by the way, and I saw Liam's picture, and instantly the second I saw him, like my soul recognized him, as the way that I've described it. Like it was as if like I always known him, like in, whether you want to say it's past lives, or whether like our spirits from the grander universe were just so familiar with each other. And yeah, like I knew this was the person that I prayed for, and I spent so long like hesitating on whether to message him or not. Like we're talking like probably a month or so, maybe even longer, just because I knew that like if I messaged him and then he wasn't into me, or I messaged him saying something stupid, that was going to be it. Like, and lo and behold, I finally did message him, and I can't remember what I said, but I remember the message that I got back from him the next day. Like just like with great anticipation and trepidation, I opened it up, and he'd just written back to me, and I hadn't written a big message. It was just like a basic one with a bit of text, just so there was some conversation or something. He just messaged me back, just going, you know what, you seem like somebody who's gonna get it. You seem like somebody who's gonna get it. I said something else as well, and yeah, we started talking. It took me fucking ages to finally get him to come see me, because he had like really bad social anxiety, and yeah, it was kind of hard at first as well, because he was a very angry human being, and like he just started like yelling at me over text, like couldn't do phone calls, because like that was like his anxiety was that level, and I'd always have to like talk him down over text. And the relationship effectively got built off of, as I know from what he's told me, was the fact that I never like threw his anger back at him. Like I was always there for him. Like I'd always do whatever I could to make him feel better. I'd listen to him, let him say whatever he needed to, and eventually he felt comfortable enough that he came around to see me one day, and then stayed for like 3 or 4 nights. And yeah, that was, he became my boyfriend, and that was like an on-off thing for 3 or 4 years at that point. And that was like my first boyfriend ever as well. And to be honest with you, at first, because of like what the issues that he had, I never really thought that he was actually going to be a boyfriend I could have for the rest of my life, because I always felt like I'm just having to help him. And it was always kind of like the Alec thing. It's I mean, don't get me wrong, he was 22, but it was like he had the mind of a 14-year-old sometimes, and it was just like, it's just nothing I'm going to engage with, because it's not what I want. And but yeah, we did, after a couple of months, we went and had a weekend away at his parents' cabin that they have in Lake District. But before we went there, he told me over text that he loved me. And because I had to spend so long like helping him when his mind was going west, I hadn't been treating him, I suppose, like a proper boyfriend. I hadn't even been considering him as a long-term boyfriend, because I just didn't think it was going to work out. But he told me that he loved me, and then instead of me actually talking to him about that when I saw him, like he put "I love you" and I messaged him back, "I love you too, I love you too, man," something like that, something that just proper like diffused what he just said. So stupid of me to do. And yeah, we went to the Lake District, spent the weekend there. And then I think in his mind he thought it was going to be like, that would really move our relationship onto the next level, but it didn't, because I, in my head, didn't want it to be on that next level. Like he wasn't the person I was wanting for like the rest of my life. And yeah, so he ended up breaking up with me after that. And that was really when it actually hit home, like how much I did care about him. But because I'd spent so much trying to help him, work with him, I hadn't really allowed those feelings to like become acknowledged in myself, I guess. And when we broke up, like it actually did hit me at that point. Like I actually did really care about him. I of course did care about him, but I don't think I quite knew how much. And so we were apart for a few months, and then this one thing that we've always done is, because we've broken up a few times, and it'll always be a while after that, I'd have like a really deep, thoughtful night. This is what I'm saying, he and I are connected, just on a different level. I'd have like a really long think about him one night, maybe get upset, and then I would wake up the next morning and there would be a message from him out of nowhere after like months of not talking to each other, and I spend one night just really thinking about him. I'd always wake up and I'd either have a text message or an email or both. That's happened so many times. We did try to like work our relationship out. I know the first time when we met up after we broke up for the first time, we were mid-coitus, and I didn't think the I love you thing would come up again, and I still kind of, not that I didn't want it to, but I wasn't, I think I didn't want it to be honest with you, but yeah, we were just in the middle of fooling around, and we're just in the darkness, and just like as I'm moving, he just says to me like in the softest voice, just says, "I love you," and it kind of took me back a bit, because in my head I'm thinking like, "Oh, this again." That was how I had it in my head previously. So, but I spent like a few seconds just in silence, and I just felt it in me. Like I realised I do actually love him, and so I said it back to him. I said, "I love you too." Yeah, and then the relationship was good for a while until it's not, and you know, he gets mental, we break up, and then we get back together, and then it just goes on and on. I mean, to give you an impression of him, like he'd tell me to kill myself sometimes when I was trying to like make him feel better, when I was putting up with his anger and what have you. And I'd always say to him whenever he'd like tell me to kill myself, because we were always fine when we were seeing each other in person. It was when he was alone and he was talking to me over text, like his head would go, and I hate text talk to begin with, so I wasn't able to diffuse the situation as well as I would have liked to, so I always had to do it over text, which fucking annoyed me, but you know, I loved him, so it's what I did. But he used to like tell me to kill myself instead of like doing what most people would do and return that anger, return that betrayal. I didn't. I would always message him back, just going, just saying to, so I'm not having a look at this, I'm just checking the notes, that I'd always say to him, "You're a better man than this. You know that this is your head going west. Like, you know that you wouldn't say this under any normal circumstance. Like, as I say, you're a better man than this. This isn't you." And it was stuff like that why I know, like he'd defend me like to the ends of the earth at some points, like say I'm lovely and everything. And one thing I always used to say to him when we were arguing, or rather, because I never liked arguing with him, and I didn't, as I say, I didn't make the arguments, I'd always try and diffuse it instead. But anytime he'd start like projecting onto me that I was like as angry as him or something, I'd always say to him as well, like, "I am always on your side, and if you're ever messaging me thinking that I'm having these like ulterior feelings, or that I'm really angry at you, that's not the case. I am always on your side. Even if you're doing something bad, even if you're doing something wrong, I am always on your side. Like, just remember that. Just know that's always the place where I'm coming from in relation to you." And he did. He used to say like so many bad things about me, because I think he was always trying to find something. Like, he very much admired me as well. Like, ended up growing his hair out and started like using phrases that I would use, not just like Turner phrases, but like as a way to explain things and do all that kind of stuff. Very much built his life around a lot of things that I said, actually, and a lot of advice that I'd given him. And he, I think he used to just try and list and throw out anything that he may have had an issue with, or that he wanted to have an issue with me when we were arguing, just to see if I gave it any validity, so that he could then run with that and feel as if he had like a leg to stand on in these arguments, like a persistent point to make. Like, he did end up pointing out to me that he was saying that every time that he tried to open up to me, like I had walls up, and I had to explain to him, like, well, you do have to understand, like, when you tell somebody like kill themselves and stuff, it is going to, in the back of my mind, it is going to put up walls, because I don't want somebody who I love to have the ability to hurt me like that. But I mean, he did get that on the nose, whether he actually meant to or not. He did get that on the nose. I definitely did have, and I will give him credit for the noticing that I had walls up, the schizotypal walls from the schizoid side. But I said to him, like, I was always on the other side of the wall, mate. I heard everything that you said. and I was always there for you, and I always tried to break as many of them down as I could, but through no fault of my own, I didn't sometimes even recognize that there were walls that I would need to try and break down there, because it's, again, like you're telling me to go kill myself. It's how can you not expect somebody to try and put walls up against that if I'm still trying to help you? Like, I have to still protect myself in these situations. And yeah, like the schizotypal part, I just put schizotypal into fears, because it did, but yeah, he didn't make it easy on me at all. And I always tried my best with him. I sorted out his relationship with his mom, because like he wasn't in a great place with her. Not that she was a bad person, but like he'd always be arguing with her as well, and he was always pissed off that she would be upset when they'd argue. And I'd say to him, mate, I can assure you, no matter how upset you may get over the arguments you and your mom are having, I guarantee you it is actually worse for her, because she'll be thinking in her head, why is it every time that I try and help my son and try and make him feel better, all I seem to do is make him more upset and like make him feel worse? And I guarantee you that breaks her inside. And that was one of the things that he took on board, and ended up fixing his relationship with his mom to the point where like they were sending kisses to each other over texts. And you know, it was nice. I was happy to do that for him. I was proud to do that for him. So I've got like 3 minutes left on my storage space. So yeah, as far as Liam and I go, so we're not together anymore. But there's that is loving with schizotypal personality disorder, and I only ever want the best for all of these people. I only ever want the best for everyone in life, really. I've always had such conflicting experiences when it comes to relationships, because there's such a personal part of me that is, as everybody is, like so afraid of being hurt, being vulnerable. And for me especially, it's like literally giving somebody your entire life, and I don't mean that in like a married sense, oh yeah, we're gonna live together. I literally mean like I'm potentially giving people the most solemn, personal, integral part of me that has been with me, that I've been having to try and manage since I was a child, whilst also having this other part of me that's just been creeping in from the shadows all the time to try and protect that part of me, the schizotypal, trying to protect the schizoid part of me, just to make the world and my body and my mind a safe place for me to actually exist. And trying to let somebody into that, like it's unbelievably difficult, but at the same point, I mean, it's so easy. Like, you don't have to build a love for somebody. Like, I know in my case, the feeling is just there, and when that feeling is there, like, you'd do anything for these people. Like, still to this day, I still love all of them. Like, even fucking Alec, after what he did to me. Oh, we'll just, because I've been doing a where are they now thing on everyone. Liam's thing now is he's one guy, the other guy that he's been in love with in his life from back in high school, was like got put to prison, in like a mental prison as well. And Liam was saying like he doesn't care about him. You know, only used a really horrific word to describe what he wanted to do to him. And I tried to say to him what I've said in this video, which is you always have to respect the feelings that you have had for someone. And considering your friend's situation, I'm certain it would mean a lot to him and could potentially really help him better his life if he knew that somebody did actually care about him. So, like, message him. I knew how he felt. He was my boyfriend at the time, but I knew how Liam felt about this guy. But I still encouraged him to go and get in touch with this guy, just for the guy's sake and for Liam's sake as well. And yeah, after a while he did, and he's still like going to visit that guy in prison regularly, and I think that's where he's laid all of his infatuations now, though this guy isn't gay as far as I'm aware. But yeah, he's not like, he's kind of like me, like he's on benefits. He's not really going to be able to have like a regular steady job or anything. But yeah, that was Liam. building his life around the things I've said. And I'm happy for it. I'm honoured if any of these people I've been able to help. And I only ever wish the best for all of them. I only ever wish the best for myself as well. But we'll see how it goes. Life's a bit strange sometimes, no? Thank you for listening, friends. I think this was more just, I wanted to document this part of my life for the ever-elusive record that I'm saying is being kept and will be important at some point. God love you. God love you. I hope you all find happiness. God bless.